You ought to be in pictures. You're wonderful to see. You ought to be in pictures.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Deep Dive Movie Reviews with my friend Steve Hackman and myself, James Marsh. This episode, we are talking Pablo Larrain's Spencer.
Hey, but before we begin, remember our reviews are deep dive and they contain spoilers. So just to be forewarned, you will get some plot points along the way. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hey, go ahead and hit that button, ding that bell, so you never, ever miss a deep dive movie review. James, tell us more about Spencer.
Okay, so Spencer opens with the phrase, a fable based on a true tragedy. And I think that's all you really need to know. So it is a fictional account of a Christmas weekend for the royal family in Sandringham, one of their many stately homes. And we focus on, obviously, Diana, the Princess of Wales, who is already very uncomfortable with her position in the royal family, her fractious marriage with Prince Charles. And she's, a bit of a loose cannon. She's also wrestling with an eating disorder. And we follow her as she makes her way to Sandringham for the Christmas weekend, where her boys are there, William and Harry, the rest of the royals are there. And obviously there's all kinds of staff and security and military and police and what's have you. And just over the hill, interestingly enough, is her childhood home as well. And what the film does is it takes the form of almost like a kind of fairy tale, psychological drama, where it's as much a story sort of almost of a princess trapped in a tower as it is any kind of traditional biopic about Princess Diana. So, Steve, what did you make of this one?
James, I'm going to say I struggled with this film. And I went into it knowing that it was a fable. I knew that this was, I am a bit of an Anglophile, any kind of period drama, anything dealing with the royals, give me the crown, give me the queen with Helen Mirren and sign me up. And knowing that, I did go into this, and I'm glad that the film starts out, hey, this is a fable. A lot of biopics are going to take liberties. And, roughly speaking, they'd be 70% accurate and 30% made up or taking some exaggerations. This one felt more that's flipped. This is about probably 30% based in reality. And there's just a lot of fable that's in this film.
Right.
So if you enjoy 2 hours of a princess trapped in a royal manor at Christmas time, cascading through the halls and the rooms, seeming to run into a never-ending cadre of butlers and men servants and maids and housekeepers that are telling her she's late for dinner, she doesn't have the right dress on, that she's, needs to be somewhere else, that she's done something wrong. This movie's for you. I mean, it just was never ending. And although, Kristen Stewart, bless her, she pulls off Diana really well. And I understand why she's being nominated for an Oscar in this. It's not an easy role to nail, and I think she does it. But then, even having said that, after 90 minutes at least of her constantly, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know. I got to, even my wife was going, can we watch something else now? And my wife would typically love these types of films. So yeah, my initial thoughts are beautifully shot. I mean, the production values are wonderful. Watching the grounds, watching the manor, watching the comings and goings of the infrastructure of what goes on behind the scenes at Christmas time at the royal estate in Sandringham. There's a part of me that was fascinated by that and enjoyed that. But by and large, this was a movie that I could have missed.
Okay. I mean, I definitely liked it more than you did. I'm going to say that straight right off the bat. And I don't think it's because necessarily of the subject matter. I just kind of really appreciated its experimental sensibility. And I think the fact that it was not beholden to even trying to document the truth, the facts, but I think it strove for some kind of sort of spiritual truth, if you like, some kind of poetic truth about the character and about her struggle. I mean, because, you know, obviously I'm British, I grew up in England, and we have a very weird relationship with the royal family. You know, we're one of the few countries that still has one. And on the one hand, they cost the country a lot of money, but they also earn the country a lot of money. You know, they're our number one tourist attraction. And I think a lot of people deep down might admit that they actually kind of really like the pageantry of having a royal family, you know, and having palaces and castles around the country that are functioning, you know, and that we have queens and princes and princesses who show up to things, you know, and it's someone to sing our national anthem to. You know, that kind of thing. And although, you know, a lot of people will grumble about, you know, they don't do anything, what's the point of them, and they drain you know, taxpayers' money, blah blah blah, particularly when there are certain scandals like there are in the press right now involving certain members. But I think deep down most people would rather have them than not have them. And then within the royal family, of course, Princess Diana is this great sort of enigmatic figure that everybody knows, but nobody really knew. You know, she was, on the one hand, you know, she was the people's princess. You know, she was the relatable one, the one who eschewed a lot of her royal responsibility to get down and dirty with the people, and, you know, shaking hands with lepers and that kind of stuff, you know. And I think she really won over the hearts and minds of a lot of people, and really, you know, brought a relatable, personable face to a family of stuffy old posh people that nobody really felt they had much kinship with.
Sure.
And it's wonderful to see how she has certainly passed that sensibility on to her boys. You know, you look at how William and Harry are growing up, and sure, Harry's a bit all over the place, but he's very personable, you know, and he understands how important it is to be a person first rather than be the monarch first. I mean, you look at something like The Crown, and that is all about you are the queen first and a person second. You know, you are royalty first, and you are a human being second, almost. It's a very sort of different and difficult mindset, you know. And I think The Crown, although it's very soapy, I think does a really good job of being eloquent about, you know, and what am I trying to say? Ironically, what I'm trying to say is articulate those sensibilities. This is something different.
No, I was just going to say, I think that's why I particularly like the exchange between Timothy Spall when he's talking to Diana and trying to convey to her the same duty that, you know, the queen has, that she does put person second, crown is first, position. And it really got me thinking that whole exchange where Timothy Spall's, you know, you remember he's relating the story about being in war and why are they doing this? And then he remembers it's not even just for the person, it's for the crown, it's for the oath, it's for this common tie that binds the nation together. And I think that's why sometimes when people start to question or they deconstruct, whether it's in religion or culture or any kind of nationality, it scares people, because once the shared construct that we've all agreed to breaks down, then people get very anxious and they get destabilized. And whether we think it's right or wrong all the time, or whether that person is always right, we have to at least all agree on this social structure. And that's why Diana constantly undermined that, because she was constantly challenging this shared agreement that everyone had. And that makes people nervous.
Yeah, I think one of the fascinating things that this film explores that some of the other ones don't. I mean, yeah, if you come to this expecting you know, a dramatization of a chapter in her life, it's not that. You know, this is very much far more conceptual than that, and far more of a character portrait, you know, to capture her essence and her mood at a particular sort of crossroads in her life. One of the most fascinating things that it explores is her lack of relationship with the rest of the royal family. You know, the lack of communication. I think she only really has one conversation face to face with any of the royals other than her children, and that's that one conversation she has with Charles at the billiard table.
Yes,
where he eventually, you know, essentially tells her to, you know, get her act together and pull her socks up, and it's just one weekend, and you just got to get over it. Whereas the other conversations that she has are all with the staff. You know, and on the one hand, the staff are far more personable, far more approachable. They are, real people.
Mhm.
But at the same time, they're paid employees, and they're not employed by her either. There's this specter of hierarchy,
Mhm.
within the
Yes.
hallways of this building, and she is like at the bottom of it.
Yeah.
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 She doesn't know it. She's not in the know. She's out of the loop on everything. And she not only is she seemingly the least important member of the royal family, but it seems like all the staff know how to behave and know what is expected of her, and them, and that puts them above her in the pecking order as well. That she is like this sort of petulant little child, even more so than her own children.
Yes.
Who seem actually pretty well behaved, and they just have to do what Granny wants because it's Christmas weekend. And she's the one sneaking around and throwing temper tantrums and being told that she can't have her curtains open and being told what to wear. She's the one that's being treated like an infant, essentially. Right. And it just makes her behave that way. And so she becomes increasingly sort of frustrated, I think.
As an American, you were kind of talking about your relationship to the film as a British person with a monarchy. And it's interesting. We've always juxtaposed you being the Brit and me being the American. But it's funny, for a lot of Americans, she's our queen too. Maybe not officially, but she is our queen. I think she's as loved as much in the US as she is in the UK. And a lot of those tax dollars that go to feed the king or feed the queen are reimbursed with not just US, but there's a lot of US people that I remember being 14 years old, James, when Charles and Diana got married. And we woke up as a family at 4:30 in the morning. We went downstairs and we watched that wedding. That was our queen. I don't want to exaggerate. I wouldn't say we're like my dad was saying, God save the queen or anything, but we loved the royal family. And I think there's that shared history. So coming to this film, when you talked about it being experimental, it got me thinking, how much is it okay to be experimental and impressionist when in a biopic to the level that this film is? And is it wrong to do this? Because if it wasn't the royal family, you could almost sue somebody for libel for what is portrayed in this film. But because they're the royals, people feel a carte blanche. I can portray them in any manner I want.
Yeah, they're fair game. Almost.
They're fair. They're within the public domain
because they belong to the people. Almost.
Right, and we can do with them as we want. And I think there was a part of me in this film that was. I appreciate the artistic license and what you were describing, and I feel this film does capture that. But there was also an element where I know that most of this film is not true, and they're using real people with real lives and real relationships to construct an artificial story. And although they were upfront in saying this is a fable, I'm a little bit nervous when you actually use real people for your fable.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose I'm trying to think of something equivalent. And I think the director, Pablo Larrain, I don't think we've mentioned him yet, I think did something vaguely similar in his last film, Jackie, about Jackie Kennedy, where
I did not see it.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
And that is, obviously it deals a lot with the assassination, deals a lot with the inauguration and the way that she sort of became this fashion icon and opened up the White House to the public in a way that hadn't really happened before. But it's built around a sit-down interview that she did with Life magazine, which was a real thing. But again, a lot of liberties were taken. We don't know exactly what the conversation that she had with the reporter was. And similarly here, so there's an element of similarity there where Lorraine has taken a real person, a real woman from a very highly exposed public figure and tried to sort of deconstruct their mental state as much as anything else. But for me, if there is a film that this is kind of thematically or tonally similar to, it's probably Scorsese's The Last Temptation of Christ.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Where it takes, a quote unquote real person and then throws this kind of what if scenario at them and goes, how would this character react in this hypothetical situation? And there's an element of that. I mean, that last sort of 45 minutes of Last Temptation of Christ, where, you know, he's tempted off the cross, and he, you know, mentally at least explores what the rest of his life might look like.
Right.
You know, upset obviously a whole load of people, but that's the last temptation, you know, and the great, resounding sort of finale of that is that he chooses not to do that. He chooses to go through with it, and any kind of human doubt that in his destiny that he may have had, he swallows that idea and goes through with dying for all of our sins, etc. But I felt that this tackles some kind of similar ground, where it's like it's somebody that we know but we don't, and then puts them into a kind of hypothetical situation. It's like, I just want to get inside their head in this moment and speculate on how they might have been struggling with their role in society.
No, that was a great connection point. I hadn't thought about the connection, but I think you're spot on. That's a good connection to the Last Temptation of Christ. But I know that I think most people can accept that Diana had some mental health issues. She had some challenges, like many people do. You know, it's not a big deal. But I felt that this film kind of ratchets that up to a level that it lost kind of its, okay, I know it's a fable, but this woman is borderline insane. You know, she needs almost to be institutionalized. There's elements where I thought, even the culmination of the film, where she gets out there in front of the guys with the guns, you'll just have to shoot me. Give me, you know, there's nothing that has happened during this weekend that would elicit this hyper dramatic, you know, okay, I don't like pheasant shooting, or, you know,
well, she doesn't like her boys being taught how to use guns, right?
and that's, you know, again, I want to judge the film and not maybe some of the social dynamics that I felt were wrong with this film. But we all have families with family members that do things or engage with our kids, sometimes in a way that we wouldn't like to, but, you know, that's just what you have to do in a family. And I understand that she had unique challenges, but I just felt at times this film just went so far as it lost my ability to engage with it at a certain point. And that's where it kind of broke down for me. Having said that, there are elements within this film that I did enjoy. It's just not something that I think I would probably,
I mean, it's a Hail Mary for sure. You know, it's a what do you call it? It's a big swing, and it asks a lot of its audience, particularly arriving at a time when there are so many other films and series and what have you about these characters. You know, I'm amazed that these people wanted to tackle this subject in the way that they chose to do it. I mean, that Kristen Stewart, you know, because it's like no one's ever really managed to successfully portray Diana on screen. She's such a sort of odd persona.
Yes.
You know, I mean, you look at what Naomi Watts attempted to do it a few years ago, and that was diabolical, that film.
The girl in The Crown, I forget the actress who portrays
Emma,
her.
Emma Corrin, something like that, I think.
Yeah, but I think she does a pretty good job. I thought that was... I thought, as much as I enjoyed Kristen Stewart's portrayal of it, I felt it was very one-dimensional. It was constantly, I never really got to see her portray her just in normal conversation. Almost every conversation, I had to turn up the volume because it's this whisper. And I don't know why, you know,
it's sort of nervous, breathless.
That's it. Yes. It's this cadence that she just kind of repeated for, you know, 120 minutes. And you know, and it's not to take away from her acting chops, because if anything, she was built up in my eyes, because like Robert Pattinson,
Robert Pattinson.
I had kind of regulated them to the Twilight youth camp, and both of them have really showed their acting chops and have gone beyond my my stereotypes. So well done there. But I just felt there was a one-dimensionalist. Is that a word?
Why not? One-dimensionness.
Yes, within this character, and that's what we saw for 2 hours.
Right. Right. I mean, yeah, I can't argue really too much with you. I will certainly agree that I love what Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart have both done with their careers. It's similar to, perhaps less successfully, what Daniel Radcliffe has done. You know, I think they've all, you know, found fame at a very early age through these massive juggernaut franchises with rabid, huge, young, mainly young audiences, and they have chosen after that to not try and do more blockbusters, but to, you know, work with interesting filmmakers. You know, putting their name on a project is often what gets it made.
Yes. Yeah.
Rather than not. Robert Pattinson has talked about, you know, he just now works with just the filmmakers that he wants to. I mean, obviously we're talking now just after the Batman has opened, but that's really his first kind of big blockbuster since. I mean, he did Tenet, but this is really sort of him finally going, okay, fine, I'll do it. And Kristen Stewart is the same. You know, she has gone off and, you know, while she's exploring she's done obviously a lot of exploring recently in her private life as well, it seems, and trying to work out who she is as a person. But in her work, I think it's been fascinating working with directors like Olivier Assayas, you know, in Personal Shopper and The Clouds of Sils Maria and films like that. Whilst, you know, taking a few gambles with some bigger mainstream projects as well. I think she was the best thing in that Charlie's Angels movie that nobody went to see.
Yeah. I didn't see it.
I believe she is to date the only non-French performer to win a César award, which is a French Oscar. Right. She won a Best Supporting Actress for The Clouds of Sils Maria, which is a really interesting movie, all about you know, the film industry, but from a French point of view. She plays Juliette Binoche's like personal assistant.
Oh, and I have to see that. That would be interesting.
Yeah, no, it's really good. It's really good, and some of it's in French, a lot of it's in English, and then Personal Shopper is kind of interesting as well. That she did after that. But I mean, in this, it's a role that I would never have advised her to take, let alone expected her to do. It comes with so much baggage. It's so loaded. You know, you're built up to fail. You know, there's almost no way you can succeed. And yet, I think her performance is kind of bang on. She certainly disappears into it. You know, absolutely. You forget within moments that you're watching Kristen Stewart, and you do feel, oh, I'm watching Princess Diana do a thing. Yeah,
she's able to do that shy little cock of her head thing that Diana would do, you know? And
this kind of
and you know what I thought really helped this film was, this is the kind of film that you would typically have these grand scores, but instead we have Johnny Greenwood doing this score that really adds to the I want to say psycho effect, that pulsing in my head. There's this whole craziness that's going on, and it just kind of, there was times where synthesizers would kick in at just the right moment, and it was really counter to the normal scores that you would hear with this type of production, with the you know, the royal house and the manor.
Absolutely. I mean, because you see everything being laid out so exactly and fastidiously. You know, this is a house that runs a clock by clockwork. You know, every single little detail. You know, it's like a military operation bringing all the food in at the beginning into the kitchens.
That was eye candy for me. Watching it was just the preparations for the picnic. It was just fabulous to watch.
And I love all of that kind of little attention to detail. Is it accurate? I have no idea, but it feels accurate. You believe it's accurate. And I think that is as important. The sign in the kitchen that says small voices, they can hear what you're saying. You know, they can hear you.
Yeah, they can hear you. Yeah.
The way that Sean Harris, playing very much against type as the head chef, you know, has these almost sort of Shakespearean once more into the breach soliloquies to his staff about, you know, what they're going to do this weekend. But I think that is juxtaposed so brilliantly by this kind of chaotic acid jazz, free jazz sort of.
Yes. Thank you.
What's the word I'm looking for? Sort of melodic score from Johnny Greenwood. That's just so, I mean, obviously it's supposed to reflect her state of mind, this discordant kind of score. It's a brilliant sort of clash of styles between what we're looking at and what we're hearing.
Well, here's a quiz question for you. Which film did we recently review that had Johnny Greenwood as did the score?
Oh, he did The Power of the Dog.
Oh yes, I was trying to think what it was. I needed you to answer it for me.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did the Power of the Dog.
I know we brought up Johnny Greenwood just recently. Which film was that? Yeah. Power of the Dog. Yeah. And the same kind of, that was the anti-Western. And this is almost like the anti-royal film. Like subverts the norms of the tropes that we're used to.
Yeah. And it's weird because I think a lot of the stuff that I've seen from Stephen Knight, who I think he's best known for creating Peaky Blinders. He also did the show Taboo with Tom Hardy. I think he's done a few things with Tom Hardy, actually.
I watched Taboo on a plane.
It's kind of weird, crazy.
It's a weird series.
I kind of like it. And they keep saying they're going to do a second season, but it's like...
Yeah, it's been sitting out there. Yeah.
Getting them to align. But he's also done sort of Dirty Pretty Things and Eastern Promises, that Cronenberg movie about the Russian mafia in London, Russian gangsters with Viggo Mortensen. It's the one where he fights naked in a bathhouse.
I haven't
covered
seen
in tattoos. Oh, you should check that out. Yeah, it's very cool. A lot of his stuff is very sort of grounded in reality, and and definitely in Britain. Whereas this has a real kind of fantastical element to it that I kind of appreciated. It leans into this idea that she is, a princess in the tower. That she's been held against her will in a gilded cage, kind of thing.
Yes.
She's obsessed over. She obsesses over Anne Boleyn.
Yeah.
One of the most tragic figures in British royal history, and even, speaks to her at one point. And she sneaks off in the middle of the night to try and quote unquote go home and break into the house next door.
Or something.
And there it just turns into a kind of almost sort of haunted house, nightmarish thing. She's plagued by ghosts and memories and specters. That even the scarecrow out in the field has her father's coat. So there are all of these sort of memory, distant, tenuous or untenable is the word I meant. Sort of memories of a home and a family and a life that she can no longer sort of hold on to.
No.
And what she's stuck with is, she has no place and she can't connect with anybody.
And her children are her lifeline.
Sure, but even that, I was going to say, that main conversation where she sneaks into their bedroom late at night and has this sort of, I suppose you have to call it like an intimate, sort of playful moment with them. She's only able to do that by kind of adopting a persona and putting on this voice, and they have this kind of game where they're pretending to be soldiers and other characters. Right. She can't even be herself really around her kids. So there is a kind of tragic air to it that I did appreciate.
Mm-hmm. Well, Charles tries to tell her at the billiard table, you've got to learn to moderate your public and your private. And he's learned to do it, and she struggles to do that. And obviously, we know she never quite was able to achieve it.
No.
You're talking about attention to detail. Not that this is a huge point, but I made a little note. I loved when she went into the to get directions at the very beginning of the film.
Oh yeah,
she's trying to delay. She goes in to ask directions, and the sign outside says the fish and chips is £2.70. And I thought, well, that's a '90s price.
Yeah, absolutely.
try getting fish and chips in the UK right now for £2.70.
But I thought there were some really nice moments like that. There were some very nice sort of lines of dialogue where she literally wanders in, and the words she says are kind of, "Can somebody help me? I've absolutely no idea where I'm going, or I'm totally lost."
Yeah.
And you're like, in the wrong hands, that would be the most kind of heavy-handed, on the nose kind of signposting of what is to come. But I felt that it really worked. And the fact that she's almost completely unable to get to this place, because this is a place so detached from reality. Obviously, she says there aren't any signposts. Of course there aren't any signposts. You don't signpost it. Royal family live here. You don't do that. 2 miles to make a left to the royal estate.
Please keep quiet.
Yeah.
Quick question for you. And this is a question we were asking. That wasn't the real Sandringham, was it? I mean, they couldn't obviously film in the actual. I'm thinking there's no way.
No, I think the exteriors are actually not even a British stately home. I think it was shot somewhere in Germany.
Okay.
So you could say that, yes, Germany is also part of the British royal family, but if you go back far enough, I can't remember. It's certainly not Sandringham. And the interiors, I don't know. I mean, that would be a combination of sets, and there are some palaces and stately homes that you can go into and they can use for filming.
Right.
But no, that is absolutely not the real place.
You can only use Blenheim Palace so many times.
Well, yeah, that's the one. I was trying to remember the name. Yeah.
Yeah, Blenheim Palace. They always use the Blenheim Palace, the birthplace of Winston Churchill.
There you go. Gosh, look at you. Busting out your English facts, putting me to shame.
I've been there.
I think I probably had a school day trip there once or something like that.
Lucky guy. We never got that.
Mm-hmm. If you want, okay, I wasn't sure if I was going to say, but if you want a claim to fame, I did for 4 years. Actually, while I was at university, so I wasn't really there a long time. My family lived in Windsor Castle.
Oh. Okay,
yeah,
that beats my Charlton Heston story.
Within the grounds, my dad was the headmaster of the choir school that provides the choir for St. George's Chapel within the castle.
Oh, nice.
So the choir needs to be there all year round. So therefore, they need a school, and that has over the years built into like a proper school of like a couple of hundred students. And yeah, for 4 years in the 90s, my dad was the principal of that school.
Very nice. Very nice.
There you go.
Good.
So we were talking earlier about how how she has a better relationship with the staff, it seems, than with the family itself. And in particular, she has her personal dresser, called Maggie, I think, played by Sally Hawkins, who is there and then not there and then brought back and then discloses this great secret. And I was wondering what you felt, but I have the inclination that Maggie was never there and might not even be a real person, and that was just, her desperately manifesting someone to talk to, and of course that woman loves her, is in love with her,
yeah.
Because she needed somebody to, and it done so in a way that she remained completely in control of the situation.
Yeah.
But for me, it rang. I mean, it was obviously the most intimate relationship she has with anybody during the movie. But there was something about it that I was like, I wonder. I mean, and obviously it's left ambiguous. I wonder whether the idea is that Maggie's was never there.
I would go that route. That thought had crossed my mind. I wasn't sure because there was such an intimacy and a gigglingness and she seemed to be there and then disappear and then was suddenly back, and no explanation is really given for that. And so, I obviously it's left ambiguous, but I think it's a valid theory, and I would suggest that she didn't really exist.
Yeah, that's the way I read it anyway. And then, I mean, do we leave the inclusion of Mike and the mechanics without mentioning it at all? It's such an odd sort of song to end on, but it's weird because it's not even a song I really knew beforehand. Yeah. It's like that particular period of Mike and the Mechanics is a little before my time.
That's the time that for an old guy like me, that's the time I knew. I bet when I heard that song, I was transported back to. I was going to say.
Here's the thing: is that just that a couple of days ago, I rewatched the film in preparation for this episode, and that song has been stuck in my head ever since.
I think that's why it's still a popular song today. It is a jingle that just gets in your brain, and all I need is America. All I need is. If you think about the lyrics too, it really encapsulates. You know that he heard that song and went, "That's what I'm ending this." In fact, I was even thinking as a little amateur filmmaker myself, how you staged that. Like, was the ending, was it the song first and then the ending? Or did you do the ending and you found the right song? Because it's choreographed so well with the words hitting right at certain moments. And it made me think sometimes, did he have that song in the back pocket as he was writing the script?
I would say certainly by the time they came to editing that ending together, they're like, okay, we've got to make this match. But it articulates her cry for help perfectly, and it's nice that the film chooses to end on a sort of a moment of optimism, happiness and optimism. She has escaped. She's found a bit of happiness with her boys. That's all she ever needs, and she's there on the banks of the Thames.
Eating Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Exactly. She's that's where she feels comfortable. I mean, she's no real commoner. The Spencer family are a pretty well-off family, but it was just like it's personified sort of the freedom, particularly after all of those elaborate meals that she was made to regurgitate over the course of Christmas weekend.
You know, when she's in that food pantry, the Christmas food pantry, and Timothy Spall pops in, just the setup there, it was eye candy for me. You know, just you're thinking such opulence, and you're wondering, is it really like this? And it probably is. Or probably something very similar to that. So,
a walk through cake fridge, sure, why not? Yeah. But just, I mean, that beautifully illustrates just how powerless she felt. I mean, because had it been anybody else, she could have turned around and gone, "Get out of here now! I'm going to stuff my face with cakes. How dare you even interrupt me, let alone talk to me about it?" But she's not. She's just like a sort of naughty little child caught with her hand in the cookie jar, quite literally.
That's the thing with Diana in this whole film is she's really like a 15-year-old girl that really is she's uncomfortable in her own skin. And she's never really, there's a part of her, and I would say this was even in real life. And I'm an admirer of Diana. I'm not trying to be negative, but there was a part of her that just never matured. And that's not to say that there wasn't things in the royal family that could have been done a whole lot different that could have helped bridge those gaps. But Diana had some developmental issues, and I don't know what it was, but she had her thing. But you know what? She'll always be the people's princess.
She will indeed. Absolutely.
So James, what are we going to score this film out of? I'm thinking Anne Boleyn books on Anne Boleyn.
Yeah, sure. That works. Do you want to go first, or shall I go first? Because I know that. Yeah, I know that we're going to disagree.
Oh yeah. I'll say this is, like many times you have made me think about some things in this film that maybe I underappreciated. So I had originally scored this at 1.5 stars.
Oh wow!
Because I was kind of irritated at the end of watching it, but having a little hindsight and processing this with you and remembering the aspects of it I did enjoy. The eye candy, the production values, the Kristen Stewart's acting. I'm going to up it to 2 stars. I don't necessarily think people have to go see this. It's not on my must-see list, but you convinced me to go from 1.5 to 2.
Well, that's great. I'm glad I did. I wish it had been more. I mean, this is an odd film. There's no getting around that, and it's not what a lot of people would expect or even, I think, hope for from a quote unquote Princess Diana movie. But I really appreciate when a film sort of swings for the fences, you know, when it is like, this is what we're doing and we're going to go for it. And there's nothing in this movie that suggests a half measure or you know, pulling back or anything. They're like, this is what we want to do. And I think that for what it attempts to do, it does it really, really well. And it's anchored by, you know, I think a transformative performance from Kristen Stewart. I think it's one of the first times when she's disappeared completely into a role, and you absolutely just forget that you're watching her. I have no problem watching her, but I think a lot of the time she's a bit like Tom Cruise or someone where you're always watching Tom Cruise, right? Even you know, sometimes he's suitable and sometimes he's not so suitable, but it's always Tom Cruise. I think before now she's had a sort of similar thing, whereas here I totally forgot it was her, and I think it's great. And she's actually my favorite to win Best Actress. I don't think she's going to, but that's who I would vote for.
It's interesting. She's going up against Jessica Chastain, who's also nominated for Best Actress in a film like Spencer that didn't get nominated for Best Picture. Both are flawed films that were recognized by the voters as having those flaws, but the acting really shined forth. In
that Best Actress category, none of the films are nominated for Best Picture. You got Being the Ricardos, Eyes of Tammy Faye, Parallel Mothers, The Lost Daughter, and Spencer. None of them are, and I think it's still wide open. Yeah, in that field, and it's her first nomination. I'm sure it won't be her last, but compared to the other performances, I still haven't seen Parallel Mothers, but I've seen all the others, and I just think I'm rooting for her. I don't think she's going to win. I think it's between Nicole Kidman and Jessica Chastain, but that's for another time. So I really like it, and like I said, I really appreciate when a film goes all out like this. And I thought it really worked. I'm going to give it 4.
Mm-hmm.
Anne Boleyn books out of 5.
Very good. I gave 2. You gave 4. I think that's our biggest discrepancy till then.
Certainly since The Matrix. Yeah.
Hey, that's going to wrap up this episode of Deep Dive Movie Reviews. If you haven't subscribed, as we mentioned, just go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And there's a lot of videos down below that if you haven't checked out yet, go ahead and see some of our past reviews. And also, James and I are on social media. You can find us on Twitter and on Instagram, and you'll find the links in the box below. James? We also have links to audio-only versions of this show if you've seen enough of these faces, and let's be honest, they are available in podcast form if you want to, but yeah, leave us a comment, let us know what you thought of Spencer, and also what you would like to see us review in the future. We look forward to hearing from you. Till next time.
Goodbye.